Hello, hello. Welcome back.
Hello, good to see you again.
Really excited about this beautiful teacher plant that is so ancient, so connected to my tradition, and I know your tradition. Corn, the god,
Yeah.
the goddesses,
Mm.
the seed plant.
So much, I mean, again, I think a lot of these little plant things we could go on for days and years talking about them. So these are just small kernels of truth. And corn is so important. We're in the generation of humans that have been created that are made out of corn from the teachings that I come from. And the story is that the gods, as sure they tried a few times, decided to try corn, right? And ground us and made us, right? Like masa, right? And I think it's beautiful to talk about these stories, but it's hard for people to understand if all you know about corn is what you buy in the grocery store, one kind, right? You don't get it most of the time. Now you can get it shocked, right? In a package that's, plastic. But corn is all about our potential beingness of connection and a way of integration. There's another story about how many of the star people, some of the star people that came into this planet, did not want to automatically, immediately want to become humans. They're like, oh, this is a little too much, And so they were planted as corn and they grew and they had family around them, right? Little pods, right? And then that corn silk that went up into the heavens to remind them, to connect them to the stars, right? To ground them in. And then knowing that it takes time, just like a butterfly in a cocoon, was the cocoon of how the corn plant, protected them as they came into a state of being, as they woke up. Right. So there's so many creation stories that involve corn, including being used to count as a calendar, uh, creation itself in. But I hope today people can start to explore corn outside of the grocery store so that these stories make a little bit more sense. About you, my friend?
Yeah, I have so many story about it, and some are connected to the Lakotas and Native American tribes here, some to, the Andes. And every time, one of the common theme that has really strike me with the corn is the teaching of abundance. There are, if you ever sit at a teepee ceremony all night, one of the medicine that is brought in the morning at the end of the ceremonies is corn. There are berries, there is water, there's a few things, but corn is part of the gift. Having gone through the night and having gone through fasting and not feeling well maybe, and releasing a lot of emotions, and corns is brought back to nourish the body, but also to remind us of the abundance that is available to us if we treat nature with respect. We literally could feed the whole planet with one grain of corn. We just plant it, take care of it, make hundreds of grains, and those hundreds become hundreds of thousands. Literally within a few generations, we could feed the planet again. So corn, in order to grow and thrive and become this beautiful plant, need that sacred relationship with humans. In fact, one of the teaching in Indian cosmology is Aini, sacred reciprocity. Like in all the teaching, we call it Aini. And this energy and time and dedication that you put into your cornfield is what you're going to harvest. So in fact, when you're eating the corn, the energy you're getting is the energy of the sun and the rain
Mhm.
and the soil, but also the energy of the people. It's that dedication. And I know you're a farmer and I'm growing food too. And we know that if we don't take really good care of some plants, they're just not going to grow very well. And so it's this remembering of how that sacred reciprocity works, is that I'm giving time, I'm giving attention, I'm giving love, I'm giving prayer. I literally for months and months, I re-pot the soil on top of my corn so it get a stronger stalk. So I give all of that. And then I'm going to receive back that energy. And we close the cycle. So corn is really a great teacher for that, to that relation of reciprocity. And it also is considered, in the end, is a god, because the whole civilization was based on corn. The seeds in general are considered gods because the seeds are precious, right? And today, like you said, we have limited corn to this one kind of corn, which is in the US very often not even natural. We modified its DNA in order to fit certain economics and greed that we had. But corn come in so many different colors, like humanity, in so many different shapes, in so many different varieties. And if you ever have the opportunity to get corn in Peru, for example, where there are thousands of species of corn, there is something quite magical to hold a kernel of corn, to look at it. In fact, if you look really close to the shape of the corn seeds on a kernel, is the shape of the wall of the ancient temples, the stones. If you look at those big stone walls that from Peru, and you take a kernel of corn, that's how the wall are arranged. So these ancestors, these elders, they recognize perfect geometry. They recognize there was abundance. They recognize there was sacred gift there. And they built their citadel, they built their walls, they built their houses, their hospital, like Machu Picchu, in the image of the corn. And really, to me, that shows the depth of a sacred relationship to a plant that is possible. Beyond just nourishment, beyond just beauty, there is a sacred teacher there. There is an opportunity to learn from it. And I have corn on my altar for many years now. I have kernels of corns of different colors because sometimes I just ponder upon them, just communicate with them. And it's a reminder of, how do I need to show up in this world in order to be in good relationship? How does the corn do it? What does the corn needs? What does the corn give back? And how does it do that? And I can mirror that for my own path, for my own work.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I wanted to share today in regards to corn was also how the story of tortillas, because it's something that you see in grocery stores all the time. Again, power of corn that does not look like a temple. you know, it's stacked high though, right? And the relationship to make tortillas, I was watching. There's a gentleman in Brooklyn. He has a restaurant called Sobre Masa, on top of masa, and he's making the corn tortillas by scratch with the corn and grinding and like
A lot
carving
of
the
work. Yeah, I've seen it once.
volcanic stones, right? And the work that it takes to process. So the work to take to make it and then to process, all of that is a relationship. And yet he was saying that so many people come to his restaurant and just eat the stuff on top of the taco, right? The inside, and leave the corn. He's like, do you know how long it took me to make that? Like, it took me a day, and you're just throwing it away. And we forget that the tortilla is a lesson. The reason, and tortillas come, right, and primarily from Mexico, and there's other places that make it, but when we took corn, right, and we worked with it, harvested, milled it, right, ground it, rolled it out, we created circle. It's the lesson of reciprocity of circle. And I remember after a sweat lodge one day, we were eating, and of course there was corn tortillas and beans and stuff like that. And the gentleman who had done the lodge, he said, "Hey, do you look at what you just did?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" Because I take a tortilla and naturally I rip it into four. because that's the four directions. That's how they used to teach us. Do you remember? And I was like, oh yeah, of course, but it's so natural, right? So even the tortilla, right, is sacred because it teaches us about circle, and indigenous practices are all about circle because it allows for a good boundary, allows for things to be good things to be inside as well, things that you might not like, but it also stands for those four directions. And so here we have an opportunity, with things that have become so common to rediscover the sacredness. Set out not just corn kernels, but set out a tortilla, like a corn tortilla on your altar. Sit with it because it automatically is an altar. It automatically is a way of connection. And the next time you make a taco, those are the relationships that you're putting in. Are you putting them in the north, the east, the south, and then they come to the center, right? To the center to come together. So even simple things like that, we can rediscover them, and we can go back to when we were corn, go back to corn as God, go back to kernels as prayer and as gods. But so many times we have to walk centuries backwards to remember. And it's going to be a long journey. So it's good that corn is abundant and lets us eat it along the way and nurture us. And it's very similar to a lot of creation stories of other people where they're created from a plant, yet they eat that plant or a part of that plant. So it's a very natural kind of way of beingness because we are corn. So we need to bring corn into our beingness to continue in that cycle of being corny, right? But my prayer today for everyone watching this is slow down, plant a seed, find the tortilla, find the story, let corn start speaking to you. Take time the next time don't buy the corn that's already been, that's naked. Take the time to take that husk off because that teaches you about boundaries and relationships. It teaches you about interconnection. It teaches you so many stories, and all parts of the corn can be used, right? Here we have a plant that has in its abundance is not just about eating it. You can clean with it. You can drink tea, corn silk tea. You can wash with it. There's so many things that can be done. And so it teaches us that as well, a cycle of how we think of ourselves as just one way, right? GMO corn. We are one way. We're supposed to all look the same, da, 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 da. But yet, how if we allow ourselves to be unique, all parts of ourselves can be used, from the kernel to the husk, to the silk, to everything. All parts of us are important, and we need to take care of all parts of ourselves. Our third eye, our silk, our boundaries, our relationship, our prayers inside of us. I hope that today, and as we continue with these pláticas, we can find ways to reconnect in small ways to things that have become so common in every day that we've lost the magic of connection.
Yeah, I adore the silk corn tea. That's something so special. And I was remembering because we talked about tobacco last week, and where you hold tobacco is very sacred. Your left hand, the pipe. It's not something you just put out there. Deer, pouch of leather with a certain shape. But the corn leaves too that we dried and we roll our tobacco into and give that sweetness, that feminine feeling around the tobacco. And there's an interesting relationship between the two, and they're very sacred for a reason. And somehow in the process of smoking tobacco, we have those corn leaves around it. And if you sit with that and inquire why that leaf, it's not just random. It's not just because it was available and it's a nice leaf. There is an energy here exchange. There is a level this plant communicate and reflect towards us that them come together in that form. So, I hope you have that experience one day, because it's very special, and it's a very different experience than paper, for example, that's coming from tree. It's a very different experience of that smoke. So yeah, I hope you get to explore it, and you get to see it wild. You get to see it really as a full-grown plant and look beyond just the seed and the kernel, but look at the whole plant, because there is a very interesting personality and intelligence that is there, and that can teach us so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love corn. The first plant I grew was a row of corn when I was 6 years old. Nice and high. Lots of lessons. Thanks, Angel, so much for all your stories today.
Yeah, you too, Marita. Bye, everyone.
Bye.